All right, so just in case you were wondering why we wanted to show that, because you're really gonna portray in this film a very brutal, honest reality of domestic violence. And my question to you is, why was this an important topic for you?
Why is it important? It's for me, it's a passionate part of my life reality. Actually, in the first film we made, Amina the Powerful, also seek to deal with some of those issues. So I have always had this thing growing up as a child where domestic violence was a kind of a highlight because of the position that my family took against it. I grew up with women, my grandmothers, they were adamant about never allowing any man to beat on them. They came together to defend themselves when they had to, if any one of them were threatened by any man. So they stayed, a lot of them stayed without men and whatnot, and became a sort of a daily curse in my family. I grew up in the era of Miss Nora Parham, where the women in my community would say, I will go out like Nora Parham. They had this thing about defending themselves against domestic violence. So as I grow older, I always look at it as an issue. I spoke to my sisters, my brother, and I saw it quite often amongst intimate family, where I would start discussing about it with them, and they would turn away and hate you periodically, as if you're committing an offense against them when you mention to them, you should not beat your woman, and they would immediately. I remember a day a huge fight between family members over just discussing it. Yeah. I have to make a conscious effort with Raspin background, so to speak. His mother is an activist in different areas. We have to make a conscious effort that every piece of work that we do speaks to a tangible, significant issue in our community.
In terms of how you portray the issue, and that, showing that as the opening sequence, it really is. I mean, most people have their eyes wide open here because they can't believe they're seeing it on television. And this is part of the reality of domestic abuse. People know it happens, people hear about it, but nobody wants to see it and nobody wants to acknowledge it. Is that what you were trying to show, to just put it out there, yes, in your face?
As a matter of fact, we constantly talked about the fact that nobody wants to talk about it.
And as vicious as that might seem, there are people taking more lick than nuts. You know what I mean? So that might seem like maybe kind of brutal, but imagine that we're going through worse than that on a daily basis for months, for years. So, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, Michael, let's talk about your, not Michael, sorry, Shannon. Let's talk about your experience in acting in the film.
Well, my experience in acting, that was because I had to do it because I was a part of the crew, and we were short of members.
So,
Never liked the role. I realized that was a bad role. You never liked the role. He started courting this young lady in one scene, and she said, "Why go fire? You like beat your woman? We don't tolerate no woman beat us wrong here." Yeah. And one little girl said, "Well, why did you talk to him like that?" And she said to the little girl, "We don't tolerate women beaters around here." But the way he played the role and stepped away from it, it was original disappointment for him to even be labeled that way in terms of the role he had to play.
Now, when you take on a film of this nature, especially given the fact that you're talking about having conversations with other men about it, and it leads to this uproar in terms of perspectives. How do you get, or when you do a film like this, what do you want to get men talking about?
Their own insecurities and their own reality about how they treat their women. it was one great leader that says that you could measure the development of a nation by the development of its women. Well, we advocate that, and we understand that we as men have to deal with other men to clear these issues up. If you tell your brother, look, if you ever touch my sister in front of me, I will also hurt you. He might think twice before he does that. If the sister tells him, don't you ever beat me, usually they overlook that by men taking it for granted that they have the sheer physical power over women. It's not something to listen to. It's you can say anything you want. It's when I'm ready, I want to kick your butt, you know, and they just go on and do what they have to do. It is the man that frightens another man into not wanting or realizing maybe I am wrong and this shouldn't happen and should never go.
So we can't be silent in the face of domestic violence.
No, as a matter of fact, in this society, it being, to me, such an issue, as I see it on many different levels, I see young women fighting each other with men on the streets. They taking their personal business out into the streets. All of those things, that to casually do it in a society, and people, the members of the community, stay quiet. That's a big part of the problem. Even in this movie, we showed that when this woman is trying to escape from this abuser, her own neighbors just turn her back on her casually. It's like, that's none of our business.
Now, I obviously when we talk about domestic violence on the show, and in most times, we're talking to women and women rights groups and women activist groups. In terms of being the writer, how do we see, are we seeing domestic violence from a male perspective, a female perspective, or do you think that you've been able to capture both?
I would say that primarily it is a male perspective, but as a writer, you do research. And one of the first things that I did was to begin a process of research with women who have been victims of domestic violence. Some of the scenes are directly out of their stories, per se, and not necessarily out of mine. I just weaved it together as a part of the story. I remember talking to one of my aunts years ago who told me a story about a woman who was regularly beaten by her husband for laughing. That on any day she was happy in his house, he would ice that happiness by waging violence against her. So there's a scene in there where this woman, he beats her for laughing. She's reading a book, and she laughs out that a line in the book, and he comes to beat her. When she takes her revenge, comes back on him, one of the things she asked him is, she never forgot, is laugh for me, Rome, laugh for me, because it was deep in her heart, being beaten for just laughing. But those are real stories. Weave into that you research and weave into a story.
And also, with the research part, I wanted to pick up on the most important thing that people try to get out there about this issue is that it's a cycle. You know, that women don't necessarily. Yes, you want women to be strong enough to notice first signs and move away from the situation as quickly as possible. But for many victims, it's a cycle. You have to, reach your own point, your own personal breaking point to get out. Hopefully not before it's too late. Is that something that you tried to capture in the film itself, that it would also educate people, that it's not necessarily that the foolish things that people say that they want to be there, that they like it, blah, 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 but just showing that there is a cycle and then there's a breaking point?
Yes, there's a scene in that movie that dealt with the issue of religion. This fellow would beat his wife and then go confess his sins, and he would be free of whatever he felt was annoying him. I'm thinking here about myself. You were asking me a question that flowed back to this perspective of the man and the perspective of a woman. I think that a woman writing a script about domestic violence depends on her experience. Might have been a little bit more gross than what I wrote. On the other hand, it might have been a little bit lighter in terms of the violent, revengeful aspect of saying, you have done all these things to me over the years. It is my turn now, so to speak, to do some things to you. Well, men are very vengeful. So,
So that's how this took that spin.
Now, one of the things that I notice very often in being in places where people look at films that, you know, try to capture life, and you're talking about a creative kind of nonfiction that you have portions woven in it that can be anybody or a part of their story. Yet, there's this thing within us that very often, because we're uncomfortable, we laugh at it. How do you deal perhaps with an audience where they look at it and it's almost the brutality of it is seen almost as humorous, and they miss the message, or you wonder about whether the message is getting through, or do we miss the message?
There's a primacy about movie making, which we say is entertainment. Through the value of the entertainment, you try to teach something. I have seen, understandably so, not necessarily laughing at the act of violence, but at the acting of the entertainment. And a little snicker would come out in a movie. A close, my son, you know, what to say, ask him what did he find funny, understanding this issue. You know, just the way he was beating her and whatnot, he found a little bit amusing in the acting, not necessarily the act of violence itself. So there's room for that. At the same time, though, I don't think that any act that depicts domestic violence is funny or has anything to be laughing about. As a matter of fact, as you were asking, I would hope that usually when men watch these films, that they come out thinking seriously.
Yeah.
Human beings are capable. And if you are capable of waging violence on a woman, she too is capable of waging violence on you. It's a matter of her getting her bearings together to do it. Hence, when we talked about this film, that makes that whole question again of religion, the woman says, I have to go to my mother God. Very significant line about mother God, because your father God vindicates you every time you beats me.
Now, it has a lot of flashbacks in it as well. So you do show it's not all violence. It's showing how, you know, they fall in love, how things happen to get these two together in the first place. What was it like working with the actors to be able to capture the scenes, especially since you'll go from being extremely violent with each other to being loving?
Shout out to those actors, Starla Zelaya and Jamar Loge. Very good workers, I must say. Congratulations to them both. However, though, there was sometimes
maybe I
had
can
to
answer
play
that.
counselor.
Maybe that goes I can answer that better, Dave, because I had to work with them deeply, and it wasn't no easy. Because in the movie, how would you say it? Like their two personalities are exact opposite of what they portrayed. You know what I'm saying? Jamar is really laid back, real humble. Starla, which is, they kind of more aggressive, but they're cool people, really patient, really able to say, like, you know what I mean? Just when you ask her, Starla herself was kind of, how would you say it, in depth with the role of just, you know what I'm saying, being in the business of leave it, right? But Jamar, well, he was green to it. He knew nothing about it. You know what I mean? So he just gave us his best shot. So every time they're just patient with it, just explaining to him, like, he's not really hitting it for real, but same way, he is like using some type of enthusiasm. Cause I'm telling man, you gotta make it look, you know what I mean? You can't make it look fake. You gotta do something. And sometimes she did take a couple of straight punches, you know what I'm saying? She did catch a few, you know what I mean? So, but she was a soldier. You know what I mean? She was a soldier, man. They really, like I said, did their best. Took their time. Each take, day and night we worked, so it was like a morning shoot and an evening shoot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every so often I have to
limits, you know what I'm saying?
and have a consultation with her.
Yeah.
Justifying his perfectionism and showing them basically how to act. You have to be a coach sometimes in movie maker, you have to showing them how to act and absorb the blows, because Respit would say, harder, man.
That make it look real, right?
He didn't hurt her, but he didn't hurt her.
And when you're
That's
behind the
attracts the
camera,
film, you
you
know,
see
same
something
way.
different from what people think they're portraying.
And especially for when they're not used to what's going on behind, I used to like in front of the camera, you'd be like, you don't understand what I'm trying to get, because at the end works, at the end of the day, I needed to do just like this, Dick. So shouts out to them cats, man. Wherever they at, hopefully they're watching. Shouts out to you cats, man. Take my hat off.
We needed a movie of this caliber dealing with this issue particularly. It needed a place very remote, very quiet, and we'll draw some reflection and shoot without disturbance.
I know some of the neighbors were probably tripping after like the second or third day, right? Because like, Rome, stop beating me. And that's like a real quiet spot. So you can imagine 10, 11 o'clock at night, you hear this doom, doom, doom in the house, and the place breaking and people banging each other around, you know what I mean? So
how long did it take you to actually shoot it?
5 days, right?
4 or 5 days, day and night, non-stop work.
Yeah, not right there.
Like from the time we get on scene, it's like from AM to PM. Take breaks in between so everybody get recharged. Take a nap, what you need to do, but
we worked till like 2 in the morning.
5 days straight,
got up
24
at
hours.
7, 8, and back to work. Everybody was. We had a little contract with the actors. Told them we needed to finish in 5 days. We paid a standard fee. Say this is what we have for budget, so we have to complete the shoot in 5 days. And they put out the best that they put out. I got to congratulate them on what they put out. It was a first time for Starla. She's a dramatist.
It's not easy, man. Trust me, it's not easy. People think you're the actors, like you just lights, camera, action, and you blinging. No, man, you got to get grimy. You got to really just. And can you imagine 24 hours? You got to stay inside that mode, stay hyped, stay focused, remember your lines. You know what I mean? So it's real work.
And being a part of the Traveling Caribbean Film Showcase. Let's talk about that.
Great for a Belizean movie maker. I'd say it is one of the best things thus far that has happened to us. The film now takes on a different dimension as far as moving from different country to different country in the Caribbean, which will give us a little more airplay, a little bit more recognition for what we do. I'm hoping that it does good for the country, that we could maybe pick up a few of those awards from the outside, where the rest of the Caribbean understand that Belize has a going film economy beginning, so to speak, but coming along and very talented. These actors reflect the capability of what Belizean actors can do. The works in itself reflects the production of what the directors and what our writers can do here.
And not only that, being that, you know what I'm saying, we're one of the few production companies that are Belizean, homegrown, and you know what I mean? Because we have a lot, you know what I'm saying, a lot of people coming through, you know what I mean, $1 million budgets, $100,000, you know what I'm saying, budgets, and they'll come through, I say from foreign or wherever they're coming from, and then shoot the film here and take it to their spot and get paid, you know what I'm saying? Not really just compared to when we doing it from scratch, we doing it from here and just trying to get out there, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a leave on the inside looking out. That's how we do it, compared to like, they look at Belize like a good country to shoot. You got nice rivers and seas and things of that nature, you know what I mean? So
again, though, I don't want to forget the Belize International Film Festival. They are the ones that have set the stage for our works to be shown to the world, where we now have a venue to tell the rest of the world. We make movies here, and the Belize International Festival is a way of getting it out there. So without them, I don't think that, I guess, even our interest in filmmaking, which started, by the way, before the starting of the festival. When we saw it, we decided, well, it is a venue now.
Yeah.
So let's try to see what we could do to it.
We're well within the 16 days of activism dealing with domestic violence.
By the way, yes, good mention. The opening of the Traveling Caribbean Showcase Film Festival is, to me, coincidental with the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. So today, I had to do it. We'll be previewing in Punta Gorda at the Peter Claver College Extension at 6 p.m. and also previewing tomorrow as a part of their program of for the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And we find that, as you see this movie, if it is able to do one thing, it is able to stimulate discussion. amongst men and women on the issue of domestic violence.
Now, would you say, because very often when you look at a story, is it important for people to go through the process of just looking at it or knowing how the story ends or how it unfolds?
Keep it captivated.
Yeah.
Like through the whole thing, just keep it captivated. The whole thing, like kind of like guessing on what's gonna happen next. But like, it's like so being in tune with what's happening at the moment that you don't really like get bored with what's going on. You know what I mean? You just do like little tricks about like how to tell a story. Because you can tell a story and I can tell a story, but you just put that little extra into it, and people gonna be like, what? You know what I mean? Because if I tell, they be like, all right, sounds all right. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And you know, as writers, I would say most people think, well, that is your perception, that is your idea, you wrote that, you know. Yes, it is, but again, we also represent our community. So what we see in our community is what we write about. We say, well, it becomes an issue to be dealt with. And in our country, I'm sad to say, the issue of domestic violence is one to be dealt with.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I want to say kudos to you on the film. And as you mentioned, people can be able to view it. It debuts tonight.
Tonight at Punta Gorda at 6 p.m.
And after that, where can people be able
There are a couple showings that will be done through the Traveling Festival. One in Belmopan, I don't have the dates, and one in Bangriga, but they will be coming shortly. So the film is still making the rounds in Belize. If you haven't seen it yet, just look out in your community and you will get an opportunity to see it this year.
And since we're wrapping up, nothing, you know what I'm saying, straight too far away from the subject, but for all them cats, like, you know what I'm saying, trying to get interested in the business and do it, I say, man, go for it. Because we started from nothing. We started from a broke computer and a semi-working camcorder, and, you know what I mean, we just kept pushing. Just keep pushing. Like, even if it's not about the money or the cheese, keep pushing. Master your craft, it's going to happen, G. Shouts out to Belize Liberator Productions, Black Star High Power in the building. All the sponsors for the Hopkins Kite Fest, we really appreciate it, because that's something else we do on the side too, right? You know what I mean? Every year we do a Kite Fest, been around for 12 years. And you know what I'm saying?
You know that, right?
It's a non-profit, so if you guys want to donate, if Channel 5 want to come through and give us something next year, it's always in March, we'd really appreciate it. Just show up, at least host something, you know what I mean?
We also start shooting our next movie, January the 10th, which is a movie called Just a Little Love. It's a story about cocaine floating on the shores of Belize, and some poor people finding it, and the quagmire that occurs after becoming overnight rich and what have you. We see it as it's a great movie. We say this is the movie here that is going to make a lot of things for us. It's one of the biggest projects we've ever undertaken. And January 10th we start. We're asking all the local actors, the musicians, people who are interested in creative work, inbox us at Belize Liberator Productions, and we will need a lot of extras for this one.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we wish you all the best in terms of the Caribbean Traveling Film Showcase, that you get a lot of recognition and you get some beacon so that you can actually pad the new venture that you have in mind.
Thank you very much.
And kudos to you on taking on such a tough topic as well. All right, we're going to go ahead and take that final break, and when we come back, we'll have a wrap-up, so stay tuned.
Tears in my eyes and watch out, get ready after you just done beat me. You get ready, you go to church, and you go confess to your priest.
Father, bless me for our sin, Father. I've beaten her again.
In the name of God, my son, you must not do that. So when two people marry, they vow to love each other until the end of time. However, son, a virtuous woman is hard to find, for Christ is far beyond that of rubies. How much did you understand, son?
Well, Father, not too bad. Not too bad this time. First, stamp and down.
Oh.
After I stamp and down, I punch up on.
Lord.
After I punch up on the ground, I lash up on the whip.
Lord have mercy.
I lash up on the whip, I beat up on some more on the ground.
My God. My God. My God.